All right, so Ghidra. Uh, there's a Ghidra book out now. So I got the book and I just started going through the chapters, and I learned a lot about Windows from what little bit I've studied here. So it is very nice. So you just get started and you install Ghidra. It runs in Java on any platform from the NSA. I don't know why the NSA released it, but it certainly is wonderful that they did. If I was the manufacturer of IDA, I'd be pretty unhappy. So you import a file, get an example, and now it shows you the functions it's going to import and all the settings as it comes in, which is the same thing IDA Pro does. And then you can put it in the code browser and you've got the listing. You've got toolbars and the program tree, the symbol tree, the decompiler, and the listing. This is very much like IDA and a console. So if you import a file, you now get several bars here that let you see what you're doing. It has a color-coded bar that shows you different types of content. It has imports and exports and strings and many, many features, enough to fill this whole book to help you find things. And so you've got, you can disassemble the code and find opcodes. You can make a function graph like this that shows you one module calling another, just like IDA Pro, and it naturally disassembles any of these, turning them back into C code that you can read. So you've got a list of functions you can find, and I'm just, in the book has instructions to find all these screens, and all I did was make a CTF for you. You go through them. Here's what the decompiled code looks like. It's not as nice as real original source code because you've lost all the symbols. So you don't know the names of the functions and you don't know the names of the variables. But this is all you can do. So here's, it refers to int star pointer data at this address +8, when in the original code that would have been a variable with a name. So it's not great, but you don't exactly have to read assembly. And you can, games are named things like fun00403 because it doesn't know the name of the function. So that's the sense in which removing symbols from compiled code is considered to make it, that's why people say it's closed source code. You don't have the source, so people say that means you can't modify it or understand it, and that's not exactly true. What's true is it's more difficult to read and understand. But if you want to analyze malware, you have to get pretty good at doing it this way. And so you can see all the defined strings such as they are, and these will be the names of DILs, names of API calls, format strings, error messages, the strings that still exist in the code. But anyway, that's as far as I've gotten. I've written several chapters after this where you take quizzes that taught me quite a bit, but I didn't include them here. They're just, there's not that much hands-on in the Ghidra book, unfortunately. Not as far as I've gotten. You're mostly practicing just how these basic things work, but you do learn quite a bit. And one thing I learned is in assembly language, the Microsoft convention for calling functions does not restore the stack when it returns. That's the obligation of the calling program. And that makes it look a little different in assembly code. There's 3 or 4 different calling conventions, which Ghidra goes through in detail. And it has the ability to show you the stack layout of any of these functions. So it does help you unpack the complexity of all these system calls. But if you're a beginner, it gets confusing pretty fast. And that's why I would start with much simpler things like OllyDebug, and then move into Ghidra later after you get less afraid of assembly code and more used to the way functions are called and such. Anyway, that's all I had to say about that. There is a whole class in Ghidra at Black Hat and such. They're all coming.